Did you ever wonder how colonialists survived and thrived in the early days of Williamsburg? It was not easy, so let's go check out what the gardeners, the farmers, had to do to feed their families and their livestock, and the tavern keepers who grew food to serve their patrons. When I was here last year, they had just moved the demonstration garden, and this is where the farmer is available to talk with visitors about how things were done during colonial times. You can see a windmill, and that would help pump water, preparing the soil carefully to maintain the nutritional value and the pH for growing vegetables. Well, the farmers really had a tough row to hoe, as that old expression goes. They had soil that was loamy, sandy, as well as dense clay. And for the clay parts, when it got wet, it could be heavy, difficult to till. And the pH of that soil that they were contending with is very acidic. It ranges from 4.5 to 5.5. While they probably didn't have soil tests like we have today, they needed ways to improve that soil both in consistency and making it more neutral so they could grow plants which would thrive. What could they do? They used marl. Marl is found up and down the Virginia coast. They were able to mix it with manure and have a product that would improve both the structure as well as the nutrient composition of the soil and be a natural liming agent because their soil was very acidic. They needed to bring that soil pH up closer to 6.5, which is the ideal pH for growing vegetables, and even up to 7.0, which is considered neutral. You might wonder, well, what is marl? Well, marl was created when the seas covered the landmass. It consists of rocks that have been broken down over eons of time, the carcasses of animals that were around in those times, as well as seashells and plants breaking down and decaying. The colonialists dig it up and mix it with manure. And where did the manure come from? They had horses, cattle, chickens, and all of these could contribute their waste products to mixing the soil and making it very rich that then allowed them to grow vegetables to feed their family and their livestock. I'm now approaching the gardener's demonstration garden. I visited this last year in March, and things were just beginning to grow. Looks like poppies. They have everything symmetrically laid out. Onions, vegetables, chives. There's a garden plot getting prepared for planting. Some of the structures using simple sticks lashed together for beans and things that will be climbing. This is their straw, and they will cut it and they will use it to mulch in plants. Everything very contained. You can see how the soil is prepared, the beds are carefully prepared, and the white containers are boxes they use if there's going to be a frost. They can pull them over the plants that are in there to protect them. Some flowers here, and if butterflies have shown up, check out the video from last year so you can see how transformed this garden looks 5 weeks later in the growing season. Shields Tavern, and on the fence is Carolina Jessamine, and that's a plant native to the eastern United States. It grows in North Florida where I live. Of course, it grows all through the Carolinas and in southeastern Virginia. Blooms beautiful yellow flowers, poisonous, so you got to watch out for kids. When it's properly trained and cared for, it can be a very thick greening plant and provide just a luscious looking entrance to the back of Shields Tavern. They have a kitchen garden. These are rectangles. Strawberries are blooming here, a whole patch divided by onions, another plant on the vegetable or herb on the other side. These are heirloom plants in here, and you can see the characteristic bed design and the addition of marl to the beds, and they're also using straw for protection. And many of these plants would also be growing in the garden demonstration area. Onions of various kinds, ruby red chard. They have collards. That's a very hardy plant and it can withstand cold. And they have Scotch kale. This one's called blue curled Scotch kale. And then at the very back is white kohlrabi. So these are all plants that were consumed by patrons at Shields. The yellow onions sets are out. And this is cardon, big plant. Nutrition was important, so people did eat vegetables, endive, mustard greens, another popular plant, not as strong as turnip greens, well liked by southern diners, white globe turnips, cabbages growing here, horseradish, artichokes, spotted Aleppo lettuce. Along the side, fencing, Carolina allspice. Very careful with their plantings to make sure that they had food supplies. These are figs. This is the common fig, and they have a long row of several plants growing along the fence, and you can see how big these figs get. We'll see if we can walk around the back of the tavern to see the kitchen garden that they had laid out behind it. And here is the walk to the back of the tavern. These are considered the adjacent outbuilding for the tavern, and this kitchen garden is a very simple design. And aha, we can see it in the distance. The soil is improved. They have a variety of vegetable crops planted. And then these would be some herbs. We would be familiar with rosemary, calendulas, oregano was planted. Here's some comfrey, beautiful looking flower. They had onions. All of these things were to make what they would call savory dishes that had some taste to them. This is interesting. Beautiful. This large plant is sorrel. Chives are blooming. Notice the symmetrical structures. We've got a plot for herbs. We have a second for vegetables. When we turn, the third, more vegetables. And then this looks like blueberries. Yep, and you can see the little berries on the end of those. And raspberries are growing for sweet. And the herbs would be used to make the food savory, and the vegetables would be used as side dishes. All of this to maintain good nutrition and health. Very simple for garden. Across the street is a larger lot that was owned by one of the merchants here in town, and it is maintained by the master gardeners of this county. Here, fruit trees that they used for cooking. An example of the marl that would be added to improve the soil. And as we're walking towards the open gate, this is a demonstration garden that you can visit. Master gardeners are working. I was here last year in March. This is now April, and the flowers are all in bloom. The borders, examples of plants that were used, that were popular. Seeds may have been brought over from England or Europe. The garden has the traditional layout, which is rectangular beds. And this was easy to contain because then they could add the marl and improve the soil or turn in some crops to help them improve the soil. So we have lettuces. These are all heirlooms of onions. We have red Russian kale, Swiss chard, and other areas that will be planted. Herbs and other things were planted in the middle. This looks like red clover. It's crimson clover. We have lettuce. Now that we've visited a variety of areas of Colonial Williamsburg, we've seen how successful the farmers and the gardeners were by doing a few gardening tips that we use today to make our plants, our gardens, our vegetables, and our flowers thrive. Soil improver is important, but the first step is to get a soil test so you know what you're dealing with. Lots of similarities between what the early colonialists had to contend with and what some of us need to do now to have our gardens thrive. I hope you enjoyed this brief tour around some of the vegetable and herb gardens that were grown in Colonial Williamsburg and got maybe a few ideas for your own garden. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe. Garden Yay! For more gardening tips, tours, and information to grow the garden that you love. And I'll see you again soon.